Hey, what's good, gamers? Ackle here, of course. Welcome back to each and every one of you to another episode of Barrens Chat. Of course, the chat where we hang out, we talk, we discuss World of Warcraft, and basically, I touch a little bit of base with you, my community, the lovely, lovely people that watch every single one of my videos and also corrects me whenever I get something just miserably wrong. So, love you guys for that. But yeah, it is time that I get a little bit of your feedback. We talk about some stuff. Yes, there's some speculation going on because obviously there's been a little bit of lore already within the story. So it is exciting. It is an exciting time. I think there are some stuff that we need to talk about. You know, obviously Dragonflight is dragging a little bit and there's not much going on in Dragonflight, but I'm sure we can scrounge up bits and pieces of lore here and there. Given the content drought that's currently happening. And of course, I think, if I remember correctly, there's a... What was it? Something was announced this week. Is it Plunderstorm? No, it's not Plunderstorm. Mist of Pandaria, no. Oh yeah, War Within. War Within Alpha. That's been announced and that's gone live. Anyone here got into the War Within Alpha? I obviously didn't. Not that I expected that I would. But I didn't. Is there anyone in chat that actually made it into the alpha and have actually played it a little bit? Or are all of you basically just waiting for the game to go live so that you can play it? Phage Lives, how you doing? Epic Thulu, how you doing? Shay, how you doing? Alpha, how you doing? Nick, Traxy, how you guys doing? Welcome, welcome. Epic Thulu, how you doing, brother? And who am I missing? Matthew, how you doing, bro? I hope you guys are doing very well. Elodie, how you doing? Welcome, every single one of you. I'm very happy to be joined by all of you here. No, but signed up for invite. All right. Zariel, how you doing? Frozen Solid, how you doing? I usually make it into beta, but not alpha. Rather not talk about it. All right, Lodi. I mean, fuck, I'm not gonna pressure you into anything that you do not wish to do. But I hope you guys are doing well. It's Friday. It's the last day of the week. If you have any sort of qualms or worries or any bullshit like that, now is the time to forget about it. It's almost weekend. It's time for you to relax and just kick back and play some video games. So I don't want to hear any complaining, okay? I've been listening to breakdowns. I'm not so lucky with getting into alpha. Yeah, no, I don't expect. I think my account is pretty solidly on some blacklist somewhere in the bowels of Blizzard. So I don't expect to get into the alpha. I didn't get into beta or alpha last expansion. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that it will not. I don't think I got into beta. Maybe I did. Maybe I did right at the tail end of it. I can't remember. But anyways, I don't need to be in the beta because most things are spoiled anyways. Just follow WoW and MMO Championship. Or MMO Champions, excuse me. And you'll get all of the information anyways. I fixed an old cartridge of Pokemon Gold on my Gamer Boy Advance today. Nice, bro. You did way more than I did. I just went to the shops. That's about it. There's speculation. A main character dies. Yes, we're going to be talking about that, Marty. We're going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to be talking about everything that has been announced, at least the things that I'm excited for. So if you were really looking forward to a stream where we go over all of the base new transmogs in the game, you are shit out of luck. I don't play the game for transmogs. I wouldn't even know where to begin to cover transmogs. My basic feedback on almost all transmog is, oh yeah, that's close. That looks fine. Because I don't transmog ever. My character wears what it gets. So I basically always look like some budget option from the thrift store or some crap like that. Clavi, how you doing? But yeah, there's a lot that's been announced. And I want to start by just sort of, saying it's been a long time since I've seen this amount of positivity within the WoW community. And I think a lot of that has to do with Dragonflight. Now, we could disagree on some of the highs and lows of Dragonflight. We can disagree. You might have certain things in Dragonflight that you liked and certain things that you did not like, which is completely normal. But I think for the most part, all of us have to agree, at least on some level, that Dragonflight was, as far as WoW expansions go, one of the better ones. And for one reason only, Dragonflight was really Blizzard showing us, the players, that they're not afraid to try new things. They're not afraid to go outside their comfort zone and see what happens. Which I always will applaud because it's what I've been asking for. Now, Does that mean that you're going to have a bunch of owls next to your name? Of course. The nature of experimentation is thus that you will have about as many failures as you have successes. The only thing you can hope for is that the successes are successful enough to allow for people to forgive you for the owls. And then as you get better, as you experiment more, and as you try new things, eventually your team also becomes more clued in and sort of honed in on what it is that the community likes. And that's when you start to see more W's than what you see owls. Right now, Blizzard is sort of playing the experimentation game, I think, a little bit more close to the chest, a little bit more safe. But if you, and this is, by the way, one thing that went completely unmentioned by most people. Like, most people didn't even pay attention to this happening. The Mr. GM interview with Holly Longdale. Now, for those of you that don't know, Holly Longdale is the president or vice president of Blizzard, but also she is in charge of World of Warcraft, the IP. She is the one making most of the decisions in the Warcraft IP. Or at least all of the decisions have to go through her and her team, of which Chris Metzen is a fundamental part of that. And when Mr. GM asked her about, Plunderstorm and Mr. Pandaria Remix and the experimentations that Blizzard is willing to do, she made it very clear that this is not the end and that they're only getting started now. So what started off, from what I can tell from that interview, as a small team of developers that sort of did something crazy, now is a full-fledged permanent team within the World of Warcraft group, if you will, of the conglomerate of World of Warcraft. And it is the experimentation group. It's the group that basically looks at the game and says, hey, what can we make? Even if it's not really tied to WoW, like Plunderstorm, for example, is like very loosely tied to World of Warcraft. The only thing, like the biggest thing it has in common with World of Warcraft is the graphics. Everything else is unique to Plunderstorm. That's their job now. So this team basically spends all of their time thinking up weird and wacky things that they can do in the game. And Holly said, we need to expect much more of that. So this is going to be a thing that they're going to be doing far more often now. And they also confirmed that just because these things are currently, I guess what we could say, considered FOMO at the moment, they are going to go away. It's only because it's an experiment. And for Blizzard, it is safer, and I fully understand this. It is safer for Blizzard to make an experiment time sensitive than to make it permanent. Because if it fails, well, it only fails for 5 or 6 weeks, and then it's gone, so you don't really care. But if it succeeds, you always have the option of extending. You always have the option of making it a permanent feature, or maybe you have the option of actually moving a full-scale team onto that product and now making that an actual product. So I'm really excited for that. In that vein, I would like to very quickly say, Plunderstorm, I think, could work really well if it went completely free-to-play, left the sub jail of World of Warcraft. Still keep it in the WoW client, keep it in the WoW game, but just make it so that it is its completely own thing and introduce a battle pass to it, make it permanently free, and then maybe you can even do some cross advertisements with this, where you actually sort of at the end of a battle pass, someone gets 30 days free game time. That's one of the rewards in the battle pass is 30 days free game time. Why is that important? Well, because it convinces a lot of these new free players to maybe try out WoW. Or maybe like 15 days free game time. You don't even have to make it a full month. Just a couple of days free game time to maybe see if some of these new Battle Royale players may want to give World of Warcraft a whirl. So I can definitely see that happening. I want to see more remixes. I think Mr. Pandaria remix is a great idea. I want to see a Legion remix, maybe even a Kata remix. And I want to see those things become permanent leveling experiences. So if you want to level a character, you can do it through that. And maybe also some kind of updated system where you can take your main into these and actually have fun on your main in, these remix scenarios. But all of that, at least it's now confirmed that Blizzard is taking these things a lot more seriously. So I want to know from you guys, just based on what you have now and what I've said to you, how do you guys feel about that? How do you feel about Holly Longdale's response? And then just the future of World of Warcraft when it comes to these weird and wacky sort of experiments that Blizzard is willing to try out. Politically incorrect question for you, boss. How does this pre-expansion hype differ from any other past? Pre-expansion was the peak in that sense, in my opinion. Thomas, so the difference here is in Battle for Azeroth, there were a lot of us that were hyped for Battle for Azeroth, but also there were a number of things in Battle for Azeroth that myself and others made videos on going, this could be a problem. Like, this could seriously backfire. Shadowlands had the exact same problem. People were very hyped for Shadowlands. I mean, that cinematic with Sylvanas and Bolvar, that got a lot of people really involved. But there were a lot of videos where we said Torghast might not work. We spoke about the Covenants and how the Covenant decision wasn't the best. You had that whole Preach interview with Ian that did not go over well. And that sort of tells you that while there was hype, so in other words, people were optimistic, there were also a number of things that people were kind of sketch on. And then, of course, you have Dragonflight. And I think Dragonflight, of all of the expansions in World of Warcraft history, really had the least amount of hype. The cinematic first was really shit. For an expansion announcement cinematic, it wasn't a great cinematic. The cinematic didn't do much to pull people in. And so Dragonflight really launched to a very muted audience. And over the course of Dragonflight, Blizzard have proven that they're willing to listen to the community, they're willing to take feedback, they're willing to make changes, and they're actually very fast on reacting to that feedback, but they're also willing to try new things. And now, with the War Within, we're at a position now where I think most people are very hyped for the War Within, based on the successes that Dragonflight had experienced, but then also just because there are no conflict or potentially conflictions within the game design. So there's no systems in War Within that I look at and go, well, that could break the fucking expansion. That's gonna, if Blizzard doesn't nail this one, it's not gonna go well. Because the thing is, if history is anything to go by, if there is a feature in an expansion that could break the expansion, it almost definitely will break the expansion, because you can't make something for everyone. So there's almost always going to be at least half of your player base, or potentially half of your player base, that's pissed off about something. And that's obviously not good. With Hero Talents, the reason I don't think Hero Talents will be the breaking point for the expansion is because it's talents. Right now, people are calling it Hero Talents because they're new and they're very unique to what talents are, but they're still talents. They're not going away. Right? This is a long-term feature that will remain. So we may get even more talents added to the Hero Talents as the expansion goes on or as new expansions come around. So this is this isn't just an expansion-wide feature. This is a new thing. This is now what we have. And I feel like those things are oftentimes far easier to fix because you are fixing for the long term rather than just trying to make it work as best as humanly possible for now. So I kind of feel like Hero Talents is probably not going to be that big of a make or break. It is kind of going to be, it's going to run the exact same risk as normal talents. Because normal talents, if they're broken, your class feels broken, and then you don't enjoy the game. Hero Talents exactly the same thing, right? If they are broken, your class feels broken, you don't enjoy the game. What does Blizzard do when that happens? Well, they fix it. They usually do a rework on it. And what do players do in the meantime? Well, they usually swap to a different spec. And you're going to be doing pretty much the same thing here. If it is broken, you're just going to swap to a different spec. Yes, you're going to complain. Yes, you're going to be angry, but, you know, it is what it is. When has class balance ever mattered outside of the top 1% of players? AFC Dom, the problem with class balance is that even though, technically speaking, class balance really should only impact the top 1% of the player base, players are sheep for the most part. And so if the numbers say that Warlock is currently 2% lower than Mage, then suddenly all of the normal Andes will only take Mages into their group because Warlocks are clearly just broken and can't be played in the current expansion. And that's how it impacts literally everyone in the game. Because even the casual people that I just want to go in and have fun, I have no interest in caring about what is the biggest sim numbers. I don't want to have the most intricate talent build. I just want to play the game and see some bosses die. but I'm not allowed to because the raid leader is an asshole that thinks he's method, even though we're just a pug. Right? We're just here to pug and have a bit of fun. So sadly, class balance matters because the 1% impacts pretty much everyone below them. And there's no change that. You can't change that. You can't fix that. All you can do really is offer people alternative ways to play. And this is where we get to my favorite announcement of the expansion, or at least second favorite, but favorite gameplay announcement. And that is delves. All right. I am so hyped for what delves can become. Right now, delves feel quite bare bones. But I think one of the main reasons why it feels so bare bones is because the tiering system has not kicked in yet. So being able to scale difficulty. I was watching a video of someone doing a delve last night, and the last boss literally melted in seconds. It was like, wait, that's the challenge? Like, I don't understand. Why is this? So I'm really hoping that first and foremost, that is a bit of a scaling issue right now, and Blizzard is still going to work on the numbers there. But then also, I really hope delves do have difficulty scaling to the point where it actually scales into super difficult content, so that if you do want that added challenge, you can absolutely get that from delves and delves alone, so you don't have to do dungeons or raids if you want that. Okay, so, but there are some interesting things there. It's probably like the Torghast tutorial runs you did while leveling. Let's hope that that is exactly what it is. But I think fundamentally, it feels like this expansion is a lot more alive and well, and a lot of players are very excited for what the War Within is going to bring. And then, of course, I've already spoken about this, but I would be a fool not to go through it again. Wait, before we continue, how do you guys feel about delves? What's the sentiment right now in the community for delves? They said they will scale up to heroic, the delves. I wanted to go further, Traxy, so I'm hoping that feedback allows us to go even further than heroic. Not in terms of gear. I don't give a shit whether delves give heroic gear or mythic gear. I couldn't care less. I'm talking about difficulty. I want a truly difficult experience. You know, I want to go into a delve and I want to know that if I'm not playing at the best of my ability, I could easily wipe in here 4 hours. Right? But then also there should be easier ones, right? So there should be difficulty settings where people can just go in and have fun, right? If they don't want that difficult experience. But it should also be scalable to like super hard experiences or super hard encounters. Because I like to play at a very high level. I like to push myself. I just don't want to do raids. I don't want to play with other people. But if I can solo push myself in very hard content, I'm absolutely going to do that. I'm absolutely going to do that. So I'm hoping that that is something that Blizzard does, because it feels like it's a win-win situation. You're not pissing off any of the players that maybe want just an easy casual experience, but you're also catering to the people that are casual but want to go a bit harder. You know, like they want to go a little bit more balls deep on this. And so everyone wins because it is scalable, right? And from what I understand, even if you do harder difficulties, it's not like you get significantly more rewards. You get a little bit more gold, and maybe you have higher chances for some of the transmarks, but it's not like there's special transmarks that you can only get on the highest of difficulties. And I really hope Blizzard doesn't do that, because that would be bad. Because now suddenly you can't make it too hard, because you have to keep in mind that there are players that's super casual and don't play as well and also would like this stuff. So I really hope Blizzard doesn't do this, okay? Yeah, like mid-core, there's players that's mid-core. I would even say there's players that's high-core, right? So still within the mid, but like mid-high core. So they're still very casual. I would put myself in that position. I am fundamentally your quintessential casual player. I log on only when I really want to play. I don't play every single day. I do not raid. I do not PvP. I do not do Mythic Plus. Right? I log on, I do the story, and every once in a while, I'll feel in the mood to go do a bunch of world quests or level an alt or something like that, right? But I'm your quintessential casual player. However, I love challenges. So the second you give me something that I can really sink my teeth into, and I can like really fucking hyper specialize in this thing and try to figure it out, I will absolutely do that. And for a long time, raids was that for me in World of Warcraft. The problem is I don't have time for raiding. I don't have time to take 3 hours a night to do a raid and, then still make videos and live stream and all the rest of it. So for me, time is the thing that made me stop raiding in World of Warcraft, but I still like the challenge. So it would be nice if we get something like that. Removing Inspire procs, to me, is a good change. We're talking about professions right now, yeah? Most excited for professions in War Within than DF personally. We'll talk about the profession in a second because there are some things that I want to talk about on the profession side of things before we get into the lore discussions here. But how are we feeling about delves, ladies and gentlemen? Let's focus on delves first, because otherwise we're going to get all over the place here. What is your takeaway from delves? And is there anything in delves that you would like to see? They really dropped the ball with professions for content patches. Elodie, we'll get to professions, I promise. We are going to talk about professions. I prefer they didn't have advanced difficulties, but I have to say I enjoy expeditions now way more for my characters that they're not current content. Shay, okay, so if I may ask you, why would you prefer that the difficulty scaling doesn't go too high? Like, how does, say, delve plus 20 affect you if a plus 20 delve doesn't give anything extra? How will that affect you? I mean, if you just want to do super casual plus 5, you can, right? It's not going to... me doing a plus 20 delve isn't going to affect you doing a plus 5 because we're both getting the same stuff. I'm getting a little bit more gold. I maybe get a little bit, higher chance of cosmetics. But ultimately, the cosmetics I get is the exact same as yours. Ultimately, the experience is just for me, right? But the community attracted to it, again, won't really influence you because it is soloable, right? You can do it from 1 to 5. So, again, it will not bother you in any way, shape, or form. You can go in there on your own. And this is actually the thing that I think is greatest about the delves. The meta crowd, the crowd that likes to play by meta rules, they're not going to matter in this. Because if you don't want to play by the meta, well, then just go solo. Right? You don't have to do with groups. So if someone goes, that's actually not the best build, just go, all right, peace, bro, I'll go do it on my own because I'm allowed to. So I think there's no downsides to this. I think ultimately you can let this scale to whatever and everyone will be happy with that. But the effect has developed and how it operates in the future. Shay, I don't believe that because Blizzard have fundamentally changed the way they look at the game. So if you listen to Holly Longdale, she made it very clear that the data that they used to have wasn't correct because they didn't attach the data to a type of player. Instead, they just looked at the data and tried to follow what the data said. In other words, Mythic Plus is down, right? Mythic Plus participation is down. What do we need to do? Let's make another Mythic Plus dungeon, or let's make changes to the Mythic Plus system, or let's do a Mythic Plus rotation. Instead of going, okay, wait. Mythic Plus participation is down, but for what types of players? Is this a natural thing? In other words, some players just don't like Mythic Plus, and therefore, no matter how many changes you make to Mythic Plus, they don't really care if they're not going to come back to it. Or is this, the actual Mythic Plus crowd that is quitting? And that their new approach, where they now have far more, they're looking at the game from the perspective of all the groups of players that exist within World of Warcraft and trying to make the content for all of these groups rather than trying to blanket all of the players with, one data set. So I don't think that even if the Mythic Plus crowd were to be attracted to delves, Blizzard would really design delves around what the Mythic Plus crowd wants. Because delves is very specifically designed for the more casual player in World of Warcraft. At least that's what they said. We just don't want any massive AoE damage from the enemies in delves and just have a no damage taken difficulty for the skill challenge. All right. I do also hate the go solo mantra. I'd rather see the community healthier with more reasons to play together and less to be toxic to one another. Shay, okay, so let's talk about that because that is an interesting concept. The whole solo player thing. To play a game solo is 100% an acceptable way to play. MMOs are RPGs at their core, role-playing games. And one of the meta personalities is the loner. It's an archetype. It's an archetype that exists in fantasy, the loner. The one man against the world, one woman against the world. And it is perfectly acceptable to provide for the loner archetype content that the loner archetype can also do. If you want to see World of Warcraft die very, very quickly, you start designing everything with the idea of everyone must play with everyone else because it's an MMO, right? I used to fall into this sort of trap as well for a long time, thinking about the idea of it being an MMO. And if it's an MMO, that means massive multiplayer online. People should be playing with other people. But you forget that it is not just an MMO. It is an MMO RPG. That roleplay experience must create space for the loners. The people that they don't want to play with someone else. They want to play on their own. And therefore, no amount of content that you design for the loner or no amount of content that you design to try and force the loner to actually participate with the other members of the community is actually going to make the loner play with the other members of the community. In fact, it's far more likely that the loner will simply quit if there is nothing for them to do solo. Now, is it important to still have group activities in an MMO? Of course it is. But that's where dungeons come in. That's where raids come in. That's even where PvP come in. And we now have that in the PvP changes that Blizzard are making. For those of you that didn't know, PvP changes in Classic or in World of Warcraft, The War Within, you're now going to have a solo queuable rated battleground experience. So you can queue in solo 8v8 rated battlegrounds, which I think is perfect for those people that do want a PvP, but they don't necessarily have a group around them, right? So there's more than enough content out there for the groups. What World of Warcraft really lack is soloable content. It, generally speaking, most of the solo content in World of Warcraft is either just world quests and sort of, keeping yourself busy in the outdoor world, so to speak, or doing old raids and old dungeons. Because, well, what else are you going to do as a solo player? There's not much else for solo players there. So I do think World of Warcraft desperately needs some kind of, solo experience. So I'm perfectly happy with that. My friends stopped playing WoW, and I don't have the time to make new ones, as I have limited time to play. So I want solo challenging content opposed to world quests, events, or park groups. I fundamentally respect that. You level your pets, obviously. Yeah, I don't want to level my pets. By the way, welcome to everyone that joined while I was busy ranting away. If I didn't see you and your greeting, I do apologize, but welcome to all of you. Very happy to have you here. Modern MMOs should be about shared world experience, but if you want to play solo in a shared world, we totally should be able to do. We are not teenagers anymore, and most of the MMO players are older now. Leek, you can have a solo experience while not forgetting the shared world. But talking about the shared world, Blizzard themselves seem to be their own worst enemy when it comes to the shared world experience of World of Warcraft for a number of reasons. The first being that the story, the world, is already being shared in alpha and beta with at least one half of the community or one part of the community. That one part of the community is now spoiling that for the rest of the community. And then, of course, you also have the 3-day early access that is going to fracture that even more, which means that by the time the real launch for The War Within happens, roughly 60-70% of the player base have already experienced most of the game. And so for the other 40%, they're the only ones that's going into it fresh. So the War Within launches with the idea that there is no shared world. The world isn't shared. So, for example, we know that, and this is maybe getting into some spoiler territory. If you don't want spoilers, you should probably put your fingers in your ears now. But Dalaran is destroyed. As we load into the game, there is no more Dalaran, or at least Dalaran looks to be in pieces. There's pieces of Dalaran scattered all over. If you don't buy the more expensive versions of the game, that will be spoiled for you. Like, what exactly happened there will be spoiled for you 3 days before you're actually able to play. Which I just feel like is a terrible thing. I don't like that. I really hate that for WoW. So I'm hoping that in time, Blizzard sort of wakes up and realizes that this really isn't the way. Don't offer early access, and definitely remove the story from the PTR. Would probably be good, in my opinion. But I do agree with you fundamentally. If I feel forced to play with a group, I don't. I had guilds in WoW. Did enjoy having someone else lord over me. A lot of people are like that. Have you taken a 3-day YouTube and Twitch break? Have to take a 3-day YouTube and Twitch break. Ortangu, even that isn't really fair to the player, right? Because they now have to basically walk away from the world for 3 days just so that they can, not be spoiled. We can easily make sure it won't be spoiled. No? How, Anonymous? Again, what you're asking for is that ordinary players must go out of their way to avoid something that was so easily avoidable in the first place, right? So for me not to be spoiled, now of course I don't care that much about spoilers personally because I make YouTube videos. I have to cover everything. So if I care about spoilers, that's just, I'm shut out of luck on that one, right? But as a player, I do care about spoilers very, very much. And so the issue when it comes to those spoilers is, if I want to avoid those spoilers, I have to basically leave the internet for the 3 days that these people are playing. Because I don't want to see what they're talking about. And then I also have to hope that no one messages me and goes like, oh, bro, did you just see what happened there? Holy shit. Did you know Khadgar's dick is 5 feet long? It's like, what? 5 feet? How did no one know about this? Fuck, that's been spoiled. I was looking forward to seeing that cutscene all by myself, right? So it's sort of like this. Why should the players actively work in order to avoid spoilers when all that it would take to keep the spoilers of the game is to just not have the spoilers on the beta and the alpha, and also not have a 3-day early access period, right? And bam, there you go. You've avoided all spoilers, and no one have to go out of their way to inconvenience themselves just so that they can get a fresh experience. And also, I feel like there's a lot more hype then. If we don't know what the story is, it builds hype, because we're all going to experience the story at the same time without knowing what the hell is going on here. And I feel like that matters. In my opinion, it matters. There's something special and unique about not knowing and then finding out with a bunch of other people. It's sort of like when people say watching a comedy gig on Netflix is nowhere near the same as watching a comedy gig live. Every single person that I've ever spoken to have told me comedy gigs live is just another level of experience because you're experiencing it with everyone, right? So you and everyone around you is experiencing the same thing at the same time. Whereas if you have the alphas and the betas, that's obviously not true. You are experiencing it maybe for the first time, but a lot of other people are not. They couldn't care less. They've already seen it multiple times. By the time the expansion launches, there will be people that will know 80% of the story in its entirety multiple times over, right? Because they've watched Mr. GM stream the alpha and the beta to death. They've watched who else? Taliesin stream the beta to death, right? So fundamentally, they've seen all of those quests, all of those storylines, all of those zones, all of the mobs, all of the everything 20 times already, right? And that is, I don't know. It just feels unsustainable. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's perfectly fine, and maybe I'm the only one that worries about stuff like this. In which case, yeah, sucks to be me, right? The game doesn't need to change if I'm the only one that gives a shit about it. And I won't demand that it changes for me in that way. I have to say, I've been so disappointed with some stories in Shadowlands and DF that I just haven't bothered to do them because I knew better ahead of time. I don't know if it's a win or a loss. I mean, yeah, there's storylines, but there's always going to be things that you love, things that you hate. There's not much that we can do about that. Fundamentally, though, I think Delves is super, super fun, super interesting. And if there's one feature that you guys would love to see in The War Within, what feature would that be? It can be something like Plunderstorm. It can be something like Mist of Pandaria Remix. It can be anything. If there's one feature that you wish Blizzard would either bring back or introduce in The War Within, what would that feature be? Critical J, how you doing? Smaller mid-season raids. Abaddon, how you doing, bro? Housing. All right. Let's not go to housing, because housing is a massive feature. And while I think everyone wants housing, I don't expect housing to be a mid-expansion feature. If housing is ever going to be a thing, it's going to be an expansion feature. So you will only get housing if it's the launch of a new expansion. But I highly doubt that you will get housing right off the bat. I can tell you when I think you might get housing, if you guys want me to speculate on that a little bit. If Blizzard is serious about housing in World of Warcraft, housing will come at the start of the next saga. So we just had the World Soul Saga. I believe that housing will be announced at the next saga, and here's why. I should get paint out for this, because it's probably going to be easier to explain it in paint. Plus, I like getting paint out. It's like getting your dick out, but in a good way. Here we go. All right, so if we were to just very quickly, high-level stuff here. In the past, this is how development in World of Warcraft operated. So Blizzard used to have two teams, right? They used to have Team 1 and Team 2, okay? The Team 1 would be the team that would make a new expansion, all right? And then once the new expansion is fully complete, Team 1 would move on to whatever the next expansion is. So from here, Team 1 goes, all right, this was fun, but we're not going to start working on this expansion. Team 2 would then move away from the previous expansion, and they would move into this expansion to make all of the patch content for this expansion. So World of Warcraft effectively operated in two expansions. And then usually, you know, by the time this first expansion came to an end, they were already done with this expansion. So Team 2 could now literally just move on to here, and Team 1 can now move on to whatever is next, and so on and so forth. Now, the new Blizzard works quite a lot different. So in new Blizzard, we have 3 teams. Okay, so we have Team 1, Team 2, and Team 3. And we actually now have a secret 4th team, which is basically Team Experiment. That's been confirmed, by the way, by Holly Longdale. We now have an experimentational team in World of Warcraft that makes all of the experimentational content within World of Warcraft. But effectively how this now works, right? So let's do this. All right. So we have The War Within, Midnight, and The Last Titan. These are the 3 expansions that is ahead of us right now. Team 1 has already started work and is basically finished with work on The War Within. So Team 1 is already doing this. Team 2, on the other hand, has already started work on Midnight. Right now, Midnight is already being developed by Team 2. And we have just received confirmation that the artists of Blizzard have already started work on The Last Titan. So all of the artwork for The Last Titan is already being worked on because Midnight is already finished for the artists. They've already finished all of the art for Midnight. So now what will happen is, as soon as the War Within is ready, okay, so the War Within has finally reached gold. It is now done. It's ready. It's going to launch. Team 3 moves in to run the show. They're now making the patch content for the War Within. Team 1 moves over and starts full control or full development of The Last Titan. And by the time the War Within is done, and I would say probably around, like, let's say, first patch or so of the War Within, Midnight will probably already reach good status. Midnight is kind of ready now because remember, Team 1 and Team 2 started working on the War Within and Midnight kind of at the same time. So Midnight is probably going to be close to finish, sort of halfway, maybe just over halfway of the War Within, which means the next expansion, so in other words, after all of this, by the way, is what we would call the World Soul Saga, right? Obviously. This is the World Soul Saga, all of this. But after this, there is, of course, a new saga that's going to come. And this new saga is going to have 3 new expansions within that. So, what happens with Team 3, okay? Not Team 3, Team 2, once Midnight is finished. Remember, Midnight has not launched yet. Midnight is finished, but it has not launched yet. We're still finishing up the War Within. So what does the team for Midnight do? Well, Team 2 now starts on the new expansion, right? The new the new saga Team 2 is already working on. How many years does Team 2 have to make the next World Soul or the next saga expansion happen? Well, let's say that the War Within maybe has 1 year left before at the time Midnight is finished. You have 2 years for Midnight, although Blizzard did say that they're going to try and push it a little bit more to 1.5 years per expansion. So, okay, let's say that the War Within has 6 months left. And Midnight will obviously be 1.5 years. That's 2 years. The Last Titan, 3.5 years, maybe even closer to 3.5, 4 years. That means that Team 2 has 4 years to design and develop the next expansion for the next saga. 4 years that they can work on that. 2 years wasn't enough for housing in World of Warcraft. 3.5 years may just be enough for housing in World of Warcraft. So the safest bet right now for when housing is going to come in World of Warcraft is the first expansion of the next saga. Does anyone have a problem with my logic there? Britgirl J, actually, I have it on reasonable authority that the next saga is already in development, insofar as they already know exactly what the next saga is going to be about. This is the new plan going forward. This was decided. They knew what the next, from my understanding, they knew what the next 3 sagas were going to be before they committed to the saga system. Because Chris Mason basically came in and gave them a giant blueprint for basically actually the next 20 years of World of Warcraft. So the blueprint for the story of World of Warcraft is now 20 years. Obviously, they don't know what every single expansion will have, but they know what the story is going to be and where the story is going over the course of the next 20 years because they already have those sagas in play. So it is my understanding that that is what's currently happening. Now, obviously, everything is always up for change, right? And what they think the story may look like in 20 years might not be where we end, right? So they could decide halfway through, actually, we think this is a better idea, but they have a rough sketch, a blueprint, if you will, for where they want to be in the next. Remember, they kept saying this at BlizzCon as well. The next 20 years, looking forward to the next 20 years of World of Warcraft. They were saying that because that's literally what they have. They have a blueprint for at least the next 20 years of World of Warcraft. Again, it can change because they can decide midway through, we don't actually like this. We would preferably change this or do something new there. but at least we know that they are committed to it to some extent. Do you have thoughts on what the next saga could be about story-wise? Marty, this is too early for that. It is way too early to be talking about what the next saga could be, because we don't even know what this saga is going to be. We can draw conclusions based on the names, but most of the names are also very, very ominously vague. So Midnight, for example, what does that mean? Is Midnight a reference to the Hour of Twilight? Is Midnight a reference to the Old Gods? Is Midnight perhaps a reference to the Old Gods and Elune, or maybe just Elune? What is Midnight an actual reference to? And then the Last Titan is even more vague. Because are there no more Titans left? Is this the last Titan we're killing? Is this the last Titan we're raising? What is the last Titan? So until we have a little bit more clarity on what the future or what the expansion is at least going to be about, I would definitely not go into speculating on what the next saga could be. I can tell you that I do think a next saga could very easily deal with, and that would depend on what is in the next expansion or in the next in this saga. But if we're not dealing in this saga with life, and specifically the cosmological forces of life, I think the next saga could very easily be that. There's more than enough story built up in the life cosmic sect that I think we can explore that to a much greater degree. Not to mention the fact that we have the Cenarian circle. We have so many druid circles out there from both Tauren and Night Elf that basically have been criminally underused in World of Warcraft. You know, these circles and these shaman organizations are all basically just sitting there waiting for something, and yet nothing ever comes. We have the Drust storyline. The Drust is super, super tied to the life storyline, so the Drust would definitely work on that world, on the next saga. You could have the Drust there. We have the Devourers that we learned about in Shadowlands, but never ever got any more information on. Remember, the Devourers are said to have always been something different, but then they changed. We don't know why they changed, but they changed and they became these Devourers. But there's a very real chance that these Devourers are also tied very specifically to the Drust and to life, and that's also a thing that needs to be looked at. So life is as an expansion, or as a world soul, or as a saga, as a saga, the cosmic forces of life could actually be super cool and super interesting to dive into. But that would depend on which ones do we deal with in the next 3 expansions, because if light isn't dealt with in the next 3 expansions, then maybe the next saga should be something about light. Just because we're dealing so much with void and stuff right now. Chat is over. War Within already. What's next? Yeah, I mean, that is us WoW nerds, right? That's how we do it in the WoW community. We always want the next big thing. All right, so let's talk warbands. How many of you are hyped for warbands? Lily, how are you doing? Stephanie, how are you doing? Venderalia, how are you doing? You know what I like most about the warband system? It's the change in philosophy from Blizzard. That's the thing that excites me most, because it's filled with such promise. It's like all that promise the night before prom. Like, are you going to have sex? Is she going to touch your dick? Isn't she going to touch your dick? What's going to happen? That night before prom, right? You know something may be happening, but you're not entirely sure yet what. That's the most exciting part about warbands. Because if you listen to Ian, there is a fundamental philosophical shift from Blizzard in how they used to approach World of Warcraft and how they're going to be approaching World of Warcraft now. In the past, World of Warcraft very much was approached as a one-character game. You make your character, you play your character, and that is why there were so many restrictions from Blizzard's side on what can and cannot be shared. Because Blizzard really, they thought that by making things more exclusive to your character, it gives those things a lot more weight. You know, it makes those things matter. So, for example, if you do go and grind out your rep to max on your main, it matters, right? Because it's your main. This main is a character within the world, and this main matters, and this matters because you're making friends and killing enemies. I think what Blizzard for a long time failed to realize is that while they were trying to preserve this 20-year-old idea, the player base were no longer playing the game that way and haven't been for a very long time. You know, Blizzard is desperately trying to make your main and all of its activities matter, and the player base has 50 alts. You know, on average, people have like 10 alts in World of Warcraft. And so it's like, all right, so you're designing the game for a world that no longer exists because the player base isn't playing the game the same way. And now Blizzard have finally shifted that. And they've said, okay, we will start to design the game with an account perspective. So we're no longer looking at your warlock or your paladin or your priest. We're looking at you as the player, and your account represents the player that you play with. It doesn't matter which one of your alts you're on, it's your account that wins. And personally, I'm excited for what this can lead to. I'm excited to see if Blizzard is going to try to keep the sanctity of classes alive, or if Blizzard is going to allow for a design that basically allow players to play different classes and different characters for different types of activities in its entirety. So maybe you have your warlock for raids, but you have your paladin for dungeons, and you have your druid for world quests, and you have your your priest for delves. And it's perfectly fine because, well, that's how you play your characters. That's where you enjoy them the most. And so it's perfect for you to be able to play, and nothing is lost between all of this. We already know anything that you collect now in the game is going to be added to your transmog tab in the Warband bank, and you'll be able to retrieve that transmog on the character that can have it. Even, by the way, and this has been tested on the alpha, so unless this is a bug, even if you sold the item. So if you get a new item and you sell it to a vendor, the appearance is automatically loaded into your warband until someone claims it, until one of your alts click on the warband bank and just load that appearance onto them. So you don't even have to keep the items around. The appearance is just automatically saved as soon as you sell the item, so that you can immediately retrieve it on alt, which I think is just phenomenal. I love the change. And I'm interested to see how the technology around this evolves to make things maybe a lot more interactive. I would like to know from you guys, do you think that characters should have shared bags? Or do you feel like that could become super messy super quickly? Or maybe just the ability to access your other character's bags from any character. So even though the bags aren't technically shared, you can access any of your other character's bags literally just on the fly. So I forgot to, when I logged out of my main, my warlock, I forgot to put my mats into the warband bank. But I'm on my druid now. I can literally just open my warlock's bags, grab the herbs off of the bag, and then use the herbs, right? Because, well, I can gain access to those bags because it's on my account. Would that be something that you guys would want to see? Of course, permitting that the infrastructure can actually support that. But would that be something that you like? Or do you actually like the idea of at least sort of preserving some RP in No, if you want stuff to be shared, it needs to go into the bank. Just to sort of preserve that RPG feel of, you still have to do a little bit from your side so that, you know, the characters still feel like they're different characters rather than it is really just one character. How would you feel about that? Make it a toy like the pawns that you can currently get access to your bank, mailbox, and other things. A toy could really work well. Shared gold deposit in the bank, maybe. Shared bank, yes. Shared backs, no. Would be too confusing. Mika Spider, okay, so I think you guys are misunderstanding what I'm saying. Let's get paint out again. Okay. So I am not suggesting that you log in VTX, how you doing? That you suddenly see this. Alright, it's I'm not suggesting that you log in to the game and suddenly this is your bag, right? But the bag is basically filled with, you know, all of these other characters' bags that you open and there's just a shit ton of bags from all of your alts, right? That's not what I'm suggesting. Instead, imagine it's something a little bit more akin to this. So you open your bag, right? And there your bag opens up. Okay, that's great. All of your items are neatly inside this bag. You're having the time of your life. And then right to the side of it, you have these little dots. Okay? Imagine this is the UI. And imagine this is a fucking straight line. Okay? These little dots. Each of these dots is one of your characters. So if I want to see my Warlock's bag, I literally just click on this little dot over here. Right? So I click on this little dot here. And it opens my Warlock's bag. But maybe I don't want to see my Warlock's bag. I want to see my Paladin's bag. And then I click on that button there. And now I see my Paladin's bag. And so on and so forth. So effectively, it's like tabs. It, you know, the UI can look like anything, right? Doesn't matter. It can look like anything. So you can have the tabs here at the top. So this is the one tab. This is the second tab. It doesn't really matter. But that's what I mean when I say shared bags. In other words, you can access anything from anywhere regardless. Because right now, that is not going to be how it works, right? Right now, the way it's going to work is if you have an item inside your bag over here, so let's say you have a fucking banana inside your bag here, but you want the banana on your druid, well, unless you deposited this banana into the Warband bank, you're not getting that fucking banana, right? The banana is not available to you. You're going to have to log out of your druid, log into your warlock, drop the banana into the Warband bank, and then log on to your druid and get the banana out of the Warband bank. That's how it's going to work. So that's what I'm asking. Would you guys prefer a shared bag UI experience? Or do you think it's important for characters to still feel unique and as if they matter? Add-ons is good though. Hector, I'll definitely agree with that. Banana, true. Personally, I prefer the current implementation. You should actively deposit it first. All right. I respect that. By the way, I'm not suggesting we must have it my way. I am genuinely asking the question, how would people prefer to play? What would be more fun for people? So currencies are already shared, from what I understand, across all of your Warband characters. So you don't have to worry about that. It is my understanding that every single currency that you have in the game is universal on your account. So that is already taken care of, from what I understand at least. Or most currencies. The more basic currencies, if it's currencies like specific raid gear currencies and that will still, I think, be character bound, if I remember correctly. I read it this morning. So there's some currencies that's still locked, but these are more exclusive currencies. As for the universal currencies, these are available on all of your, like, on your account. And Blizzard did say that they're open to exploring even more shared currencies in the future, depending on what the system is, right? And how the system is actually engaged with. If they did it for the favorites part of the Warband, it would be simpler. I mean, whichever way you guys envision, I'm just throwing it out there as an idea of, you know, something that could be done. But I have no real qualms. I don't play a lot of alts. I do have some alts, but not enough that this is going to be a change that affects me in that much of a way. The only thing that I'm excited for when it comes to alts is I don't like redoing shit that I've already done on my main on alts. Like, one of the main reasons why I refuse to level alts, basically for the last 2 expansions, is I can't imagine getting to max level and then having to re-grind rape. Like, that shit just blows my dick off. I would rather stick my dick in, like, a fucking moving fan, if I'm honest with you, than go and redo all of the rapes. It is just no thanks. Then I just don't level alts, because you want to play an alt at high level, but you don't want to do all the other bullshit, right? But here's something that's super duper interesting. Did you guys hear about the leveling XP changes? Phage Life, I won't do a reaction now, but we can probably do a reaction later. Tomorrow or the day after, depending on when I stream on Twitch again. But here, I won't do reactions. This is a chat. This is to chat and to talk to you guys. So, I won't be doing reactions right now. So, yeah, Dean. This is a change that I've been asking for since Legion. In Legion already, when people were complaining that it takes too long to level characters, I was saying, wouldn't it be easier if you just had a stacking XP buff? So get one character to max level, all of your other characters level 20% faster. Then you do another character to max level 40% faster or 50% faster. Eventually make it so fast that one quest gets you to max level, right? Not that bad, but you get the idea, right? It should be, if I am leveling more characters, I should be going through those characters far more quickly, okay? I should be able to level them far more quickly. Because like I said before, I don't imagine many people play World of Warcraft purely for leveling purposes. I'm sure there's some. I'm sure there's some people that have some weird obsession with World of Warcraft early leveling, and they just love leveling characters. There's always going to be different people for different things. There's people that actually like sticking their dicks in fans. So I'm sure there's people that like leveling. And sticking your dick in a fan is far worse than leveling in World of Warcraft. But I'm not like that, and I would argue most people are probably not like that. I think most people would rather not just constantly level characters and have it be super slow, you know? Love the fact that when you did something, it's done for you, even for the main quest. You have the skip option on the RP event. Matthew, I also like the fact that you have the ability to skip raids on alts if you've already done them. Neno, I think personally, Blizzard probably didn't make that much money on the leveling boost. That's probably why they're making all of these leveling changes, because I think the leveling boost just didn't make that much money for Blizzard. And so the leveling boost will now just exist for those players that really can't be fucked to level a new character. Too much faith in your fellow man? Chad, you have to. What are you supposed to do? If they do that, I might actually get my disjointed mess of characters to max level. Nigu Spider, but it's already been done. Like, what I'm telling you now isn't some speculation on what I would love to see. It is literally what will happen. It has been confirmed by the developers. Every single character that you get to max level increases the XP buff to all of the other characters in your Warband. I'll be sad to see XP gutted out. Shay, why? Stormmounts probably sell way more. Yeah, Blizzard makes more than enough money on the Stormmounts. They don't need the leveling boost. Burnt Gears for old content will be amazing for Transmog. I think there's nothing bad that I can say about Warbands. It's one of those features that just across the board, no matter how you play the game, there is nothing that you can say about Warbands that's negative. You maybe don't like some of the limitations to Warband, and maybe you think it could have been implemented differently, but I think fundamentally everyone agrees Warbands rock. This is a good move from Blizzard. Good convo, you degenerates. Time for IRL chores and activities. Venderalia, take care, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. Really appreciate you. Acknowledge that they're stunted and move on from there. We could do that. $70 for a boost is why there are not having massive sales on boosts. Phase lives, I think even if you made it $40 or even $30, most people wouldn't pay to boost. It's not that hard to level a character in World of Warcraft. So if you're going to pay $30 to boost the character or just level the character, you may as well just level the character. Because it's going to take you 2 days to level a character if you're lazy a week. You know, so, and most people just level characters when they have nothing else to do anyways. Yutaro, it is my understanding that Warbands is for every single alt that you own and also across factions and servers. So it doesn't matter what server you're on, it doesn't matter what faction you're on. If you have an alt on your account, that alt is in the Warband and can access everything from the Warband. What's going to be interesting is the effect that this will have on the economy of the game. That's going to be a very interesting, discussion that I don't think we can really know how it's going to impact the actual economy of the game. We'll have to wait and see. But I expect some massive disruptions in the economy of WoW, at least in the short term. Matthew, I don't think so. So, as I said with Season of Discovery, when we found out that there's actual lore, retail level lore in Season of Discovery, I said that this is dangerous. And I think we now have the answer that this is in fact dangerous. So, Mr. GM's interview with Holly Longdale, like I said, I think this interview has gone severely, criminally under the radar. And a lot more people should have been paying attention to this interview with Holly Longdale. And the reason for that is the interview itself reveals so much about the questions the players have been having. So, for example, the players that play retail and the players that play Season of Discovery overwhelmingly are not the same players. There's very little, according to Holly Longdale, there is very little crossover between Season of Discovery players or classic players and retail players. Most classic players play classic. Most retail players play retail. So the problem is, as soon as you start connecting Season of Discovery or the classic game to the retail game, you start to create a weird incentive, because suddenly there's an incentive for retail players to play classic and vice versa. And the problem with incentives is it never takes long before incentives become obligations. Players will obligate themselves into must play. Even if they don't have to, even if you keep it very chill and mellow, players will, in order to optimize, I've always said this, if there is a way for players to optimize the fun out of the game, you can bet your balls they will optimize the fun out of the game. We cannot help ourselves. We will optimize to the point where you're literally having a mental fucking breakdown every single time you play the game, but at least it's optimized, right? And that's how people are. We like optimizing, even if the optimizations aren't necessarily in our favor or even a good move in the long term. So fundamentally, I think classic and retail should remain as separate as is humanly possible. Like, where possible, I don't mind the fact that Blizzard is sort of retroactively adding in new lore into something like Season of Discovery so that the changes that they want to make maybe on the retail side doesn't seem like it comes out of nowhere. That I don't mind so much because it's a small little thing. It's not going to break the bank. But I think that's enough. I don't think we should go even more gung-ho with that in my opinion, at least. Plunderstorm is a good example of that. Dean Murray, yeah. I mean, Plunderstorm is a great example of that. You'll very quickly see how Mist of Pandaria Remix will probably do the same thing. People will optimize the fun out of the game for themselves. This is just a natural side effect of people. Warband's system is quite an upgrade on the quality of life of the game. The stash alone is something I've been wondering. Why hasn't it been put in the game since about Legion? Charlotte, yeah, absolutely agree with you there, bro. How you doing, man? Imagine you have a library or a bestiary share with your warband. You could access all lore in game whenever you want. Oh, Matthew. Now you are hitting on the one thing that I believe World of Warcraft seriously misses. And that is something like a lore journal or like an adventure journal or, you know, something like a bestiary. But specifically what I'm talking about is when you level through a zone and you complete all of the levels, all of the quests in that zone, you can actually go back to this book and read every single thing about the zone. So you can now go read through the lore of the zone in case maybe you did a quest but you didn't really pay attention and you completely missed what was said there. You can actually go back and check that. But then I would love for it to go even deeper than that so that you can actually click on that quest and see the actual dialogue of that quest, as well as the activities of that quest, all of the beasts and the monsters, if they have names, have those in the quest. So you can literally relive your questing experience by going to this in-game lore grimoire, if we will. We can actually call it the grimoire, right? That would be my favorite thing in the whole world. Because there's so many times where I remember a storyline, right? I remember doing the quest. I remember the storyline exactly, but I can't remember the character names, like the creatures and the NPCs that were involved. Or there's like one thing that I can't remember how it played out. And I'm like, fuck, man. Now I have to go to Wowhead. I have to go search all over the place for this one thing that I would like to know. Whereas if this was just a thing and it got recorded as we go along, that would have been perfect. Damn. Oh, shit. Max, thank you so much for the gifted sub, man. Really appreciate ya. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Can I get some hearts in chat, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you so much for the support, man. It is always appreciated. So you want Wowhead built in? Sort of. Sort of. Yeah. Think about it as like a Wowhead, but it's built into the game. But it is only for the things that you've done. So it's not like as soon as you've finished all of the quests, all of the story is just in your journal. You have to physically do the quest in order to get the journal. Right? So the journal will actually only update as soon as you finish the quest. And then you record it in your little journal. And that's just a cool little sort of RP-esque thing. But something for you to go back to and sort of enjoy as you go through it. So that's something that I would love to see in World of Warcraft. But right, ladies and gentlemen, I wonder, is it time for us to talk a little bit about the lore? Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's maybe something like the hero's journey in Final Fantasy XIV. So there's a couple of things we have to talk about. There's a bit of, well, I shall say there seems to be a lot of misinformation in the community right now about the whereabouts of a certain charismatic mage. Because I have now been DM'd since yesterday almost 12, 13 times by people saying, oh my god, did you see Khadgar is dead? Bro, Khadgar is dead. Holy shit, holy shit. And then I thought, okay, that's new. Let's see where that comes from. And then I watched all of the interviews about it and I read all of the interviews about it and I was like, it doesn't say anywhere that he's dead. At least not that I could find. He's missing, and the only line that I could find that sort of suggests vaguely that he may be dead is when Ian said that whatever happened to Khadgar isn't good. Now, you could take from that he's dead. But I mean, that is vague as shit. That is vague as shit. That's like your girlfriend saying you're allowed to buy me a Coke, and you phone up your friend and say, bro, she just said she's gonna give me a blowjob. Like, maybe in some weird fucking universe, you could kind of connect the Coke to a blowjob. But that is not proof of anything. And your friend will also tell you that much. You know, so I would say don't jump to conclusions here. I don't think that Khadgar is dead, and I'll explain to you why I don't believe it. So there's a couple of things that play very deeply into this expansion. Before we can get to these expansion, to what is the factors of this expansion, we have to talk about who is present in this expansion. From a villain perspective, we know that Xal'atath is going to be there, right? Xal'atath is large, she's in charge, she's the harbinger of the void. But there's another character that is, shall we say, in the wings and has been teased. And wherever the void is and wherever there's power, she is almost certainly not far behind, and that is Azshara. Now, what does Azshara and Khadgar have in common? They're both ridiculously powerful mages. But what is the one thing that Khadgar has that you think Xal'atath and Azshara may be interested in? Like, if you had to guess, what would you say their interest in Khadgar would be? Matthew, it doesn't matter, because again, what you're talking about is ridiculously vague. We should all have a thought for Khadgar is not proof of Khadgar being dead. It could be proof of Khadgar being presumed dead. Because if you look at the aftermath and you look at what happened to Dalaran, you might be looking at it and going, shit, no one could have survived this. Khadgar is most likely dead. Or it could just be we should keep him in our thoughts because he's just been captured by some very evil people, right? So that, again, is just way too vague, in my opinion, to mean anything. I would need to see a body, right? That's the only way. Everything else at this point is just way too vague. But no, how the hell are none of you getting this? Yotaro, you're like the closest. Access to Karazhan. Karazhan. Without Khadgar, you can't get into Karazhan. The auto defenses will not allow you. The wards on Karazhan will not allow you to go in. You need Khadgar. Now, why is Karazhan the most important landmark in World of Warcraft, or at least on Azeroth, when it comes to Azshara and Xal'atath? Come on, chat. You should be able to fucking guess this. Come on, I'm spoon-feeding this to you. Why? Why is it the most, if not the most, then one of the most important landmarks on Azeroth? Knowledge. And no, not knowledge is power. Knowledge. All knowledge. You see, Karazhan has knowledge inside of it that we have no concept of. Because Karazhan, as a structure, is the only structure on Azeroth that pierces both reality and the Twisting Nether. There are tomes and knowledge inside Karazhan that comes from the Twisting Nether itself. Tomes that we're not allowed to read. Places in Karazhan that you and I will never be allowed to even go because the knowledge in Karazhan is considered to be too dangerous for us to access. If you are Azshara and if you are Xal'atath, you might want some of that information. And specifically, why would Xal'atath be in need of such information? Void Lords. If she is to be the harbinger of the Void, her role, her job, will be to open the way for the Void Lords to come through. Now, you may say, but Akalon, underneath Aberrus, we already have a way for the Void to come through. There's a giant portal there. And to that, all I can say is, I kind of imagine that it is similar to, it is similar to Sargeras. We know that the demons and the beings from the Twisting Nether can open portals for demons and things to come through onto Azeroth. But for some reason, they can't open a portal strong enough and large enough to sustain a being like Sargeras stepping through. So you need a massive font of power if you're going to try and summon something of that sheer power into reality. So it might be that the portal or the hole into the void underneath Aberrus is simply not large enough or stable enough to sustain summoning through a Void Lord. But it could be possible that that knowledge is somewhere inside Karazhan. And it is possible that that is what Xal'atath is after. She needs to know, how do I open the way for the Void Lords to come through? She already has that weird-looking dragon soul thing. Can't remember what it's called now. She already has that thing. That thing clearly has a shit ton of power, and it's just been supercharged even more with our friend, the Proto-Drake that ate everything. Come on, names, bro. Galakron, right? It's clearly been the Dark Art. That's the one, Marco. It's already been supercharged with Galakron. I'm pretty sure we're going to see more supercharging taking place with the Dark Art as she's trying to build that up. And then think where Midnight takes place. Sunwell. It's possible that she's going to find a book that explains how, with the use of the Dark Art, or at least with the use of a major source of power, something like the Sunwell can be utilized to sustain a portal for Void Lords to actually make it into our reality. That's most likely why we're heading there. For that, you need Khadgar alive. You can't have Khadgar dead, because, well, he needs to open the way for you to get into Karazhan. It could also be that it is Azshara that has Khadgar, and that Azshara isn't working. I need to ask you guys this. Would you prefer Azshara working with Xal'atath or against Xal'atath? What would your preference be? Zal supercharges my staff? Ooh. She is hot though, isn't she? Metalinks, he might not have a choice. So the Void obviously has a bunch of sneaky tricks and a bunch of sneaky things that they can do. And it might be that Khadgar doesn't have a choice in letting them in. Like, they're not going to give him a choice to let them into Karazhan. It may also be that there's a dungeon or a raid that we have to go save Karazhan, right? So that can definitely happen, right? All of these things are possible. And I'm also, by the way, not saying that Khadgar won't die. If you go back to the interviews, Blizzard have made it clear they want players to understand that losing is very possible and that there are real stakes at play for losing. So it might be that Blizzard does decide to kill Khadgar. I doubt that they'll kill Khadgar, but they could kill Khadgar. In which case, we may just see the return of Medivh. Like, that may be the thing that brings Medivh back, or at least, you know, we kick into action and try to bring Medivh back. So we lose Khadgar, but we do get Medivh, which I think wouldn't be too much of a bad trade. I mean, I like Khadgar, don't get me wrong. I do love Khadgar, but I think I would be okay with Medivh being back as well. That dude is seriously cool. So Medivh could definitely come back. Now, you could have Jaina, but considering Jaina is busy with other things, I don't think Jaina would work as the Guardian. And also, I don't... Khadgar never became the Guardian of Tirisfal. I mean, he took up residence inside Karazhan, and he did basically do the job of the Guardian of Tirisfal. But from what I remember, he rejected becoming the Guardian of Tirisfal. He didn't want the title, as it were, of Guardian. Frankly, they've killed off enough people already. Stephanie, I don't know if I agree with that. The thing is, as sad as it is to lose our favorite characters, loss is important. You cannot tell a story without there being loss. There are games, obviously, that do it better and games that do it worse. Ryan, you bastard, with the $5. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you. What characters do you think they are willing to kill for the World Soul Saga? And should they? Ryan, luckily, we're on that topic now. Now, I can't answer which characters I think should die or which characters I want to see dead, because the whole point of death is that you don't want to see that character die. But death is required for things to matter. Without death, what provides the weight for the story? If none of your favorite characters can ever die, why even care about the story? Like, why even care about Farak wanting to destroy the dream when you already know that Farak isn't going to destroy the dream? I mean, you know that you're going to defeat Farak long before he can even do that. What's the point of caring about characters if their existence isn't at all times threatened? It is war, it is dangerous, there are dangerous enemies out there, and these enemies want to kill our favorite characters. And by utilizing that, you are indeed, right, pissing players off, but if you do it correctly, that emotion from the player base is what drives more engagement. People are engaged because of the loss. And I find that to be a far better approach than just allowing everyone to live the whole time. It's one of the key things that pisses me off in World of Warcraft is that we've never lost an expansion. I hate that. And as much as losing won't be fun, losing will remind people that we can actually lose. Because right now, I feel like Blizzard announces a new expansion. Like, I'll give you guys my exact experience when Blizzard announced 10.2. And Blizzard made this whole thing of Farak is trying to destroy the dream, and we're going to have to try and stop him, because if he destroys the dream, all life on Azeroth is threatened. Do you know what my exact feelings were in the moment that Blizzard was doing this whole hype thing? All right. I know we'll stop him. I know he's not going to destroy the dream. I know he's not going to win. I know he's not going to kill Alexstrasza or Veranoth or any of these characters. I know that because, well, they never do. Basically, all of the villains in World of Warcraft have performance anxiety. Like, they're all muscle, big dick. And then the night comes and, you know, we're all ready. We're all undressed. We're ready for a fucking dick down. And then they go flaccid. And you're like, is that it? Bro, I was here for some grand finale and you're not even going to be hard? Like, what the fuck? That's literally the story of WoW. The villains of WoW have no teeth. They have no muscle. They just sort of bang their chest and go, ooh, ooh. And then the players just go, yawn, and then just move on. You need the villains to have teeth. You need to feel like these villains could actually win. And the only way you achieve that is through loss. If we don't believe that we can lose, we won't believe that we can Traxie, I have bad news for you. I think Blizzard is gonna increase the speed with which they finish stories inside raids and dungeons significantly. Maybe not raids so much, but definitely dungeons, because of follower dungeons, right? Being a thing now. So back to what I was saying. I think Azara. I don't think Azara is working with Xal'atath. But I also don't think Azara is going to be our ally. I don't think Azara is going to be working with us. I think it's going to be more a case of Azara is going to help us because us losing will also mean that she loses. But she's not going to help us because she likes us or because she wants to be friends with us. And it might be that it's Azara that captured Khadgar. Because inside Karazhan lies the seat of ultimate power. That was her final words to Sylvanas. I go to claim the throne or the seat of ultimate power. And we've all been wondering and asking for a very long time, what the hell does that mean? What is the seat of ultimate power? We don't know what that is on Azeroth. There's no such place on Azeroth that is called the seat of ultimate power. That phrase has never been uttered in the history of World of Warcraft. Now there's one of two options with the seat of ultimate power. Your face may be that, Max, but she's also looking for another place. Maybe once she finds that, she'll take a seat on your face. It's either a place that we've never been to, and I mean never been to as in it's nowhere close to us. It's not anywhere near the two great continents of Azeroth. It's maybe on the other side of Azeroth. It's maybe, it could be a million different places, right? But it's not where we are. Or if I were to be pushed and you said, Akalon, identify a place of ultimate power on our known Azeroth, then that is Karazhan. If you want the ultimate power, controlling Karazhan is pretty much how you get it. Elodie, you need to tell me who that line is from. You can't just give me a line and then... It sounds like Xal'atath said that, but it could be from someone else. Without context, I can't attach anything to it. It's just a bunch of words. Karazhan or maybe Ulduar. I don't know if Ulduar would be considered the seat of ultimate power. Ulduar was built by the Titans. I wouldn't call those ultimate power places, if that makes sense. I'm a rich bitch now. Neno.
Thanks for the content. It's quite entertaining.
Thank you so much for the £10. Really appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're far too kind, and I'm glad that you're enjoying the show. I'm glad that you're enjoying the podcast. It's why I do it, It's why I do it. Because I like talking about WoW lore, and I know there's a few people that enjoy it too. So thank you so much for the support. It is very much appreciated. ICC, no. Because again, ICC wouldn't be the throne of ultimate power. If you compare what is inside Karazhan, and specifically the location of Karazhan, to literally every other place known to us on Azeroth, nothing compares to that. Nothing compares to that. There is no... Karazhan is built on a giant font of power. Right? A massive, massive font of power. And it connects to the Twisting Nether. Do you have any idea how much power you can have if you can control Karazhan? It's ridiculous. VTX, that is true. That is very true. Who built Karazhan? Karazhan was built by, I believe it was mages. I could be wrong. I'm not entirely sure if we know who built it. We know who created the location for its building. So the Datewind Harvester, the weapon from the Warlocks, Ulthalish, the Datewind Harvester. Ulthalish was a servant or a general for Sargeras. Sargeras gifted him this weapon of immense power. The problem with the weapon is it kind of absorbs the wielder. So slowly but surely, the wielder gets absorbed into this weapon. He took the weapon to Azeroth, became cocky as shit, believed himself to be so strong that not even Sargeras would be able to stop him. And then he went to the Datewind Pass. This was before it was called the Datewind Pass. And he basically used Ulthalish, the weapon, to siphon every single last drop of life from Datewind Pass. Right? And in so doing, he created this giant, let's call it a font of power. It's basically like a bleeding point where basically all of the power of the Twisting Nether exists within this point. And Karazhan was built on top of that. So Karazhan draws power from an immeasurable source of unlimited power, so to speak. There's a lot that I skipped over there. There's a lot of nuance that I absolutely skipped over there because that story would be a whole video in and of itself. One that I may make one day. But yeah, that's effectively what Karazhan is. And that's also why Karazhan connects both to Twisting Nether as well as to reality. Because it's built in both, so to speak. From the Council's watchful eye, Egwin constructed the Tower of Karazhan with Luneth. The tower acted a siphon for ley lines Egwin could gain power from if needed. Yeah, I mean, but that's not the story of the Datewind Harvester. You can go to the Warlock Order Hall. It basically explains the whole story of Ulthalish and what happened to Ulthalish and how he eventually got killed because he believed himself to be so much cooler and so much better. But I have no doubt that, I mean, obviously Ogwen had reasons for wanting to do it, right? And wanting to build Karazhan in that spot. And I think it was a good idea because it gives you just massive amounts of power and knowledge because we know the Twisting Nether contains knowledge. We don't know how, but we know it does. We know this because there's another rogue. Also, I can't remember her name now. Her name escapes me. But she was gifted... Sargeras gifted her 2 blades. These are the same blades that the rogues used in Legion. So the rogue blades in Legion, these blades were actually gifted to this rogue. She used these blades to basically become one of the greatest assassins for Sargeras. And then she asked Sargeras if she could be excused to wander the Twisting Nether and find knowledge. Right? And Sargeras said, sure, you can go. She then wandered the Twisting Nether for X amount of years. The problem is we don't know how years or time really works in the Twisting Nether, so we don't know how long she wandered for. But it is said that when she came back to Sargeras, she possessed immeasurable knowledge of how to be the most effective assassin. Now, if you spend 5 seconds thinking about that, you go, but we're told the Twisting Nether is just this place of absolute chaos and everything's fucked and nothing works. Why would there be knowledge inside the Twisting Nether? But for some reason there is. And there's a lot of knowledge apparently inside the Twisting Nether. Where it comes from or why it's there, that is a mystery that I can't answer. Because we don't know enough about the Twisting Nether. It may be a quarry. That sounds very familiar to me. It may be a quarry. Marco? That name sounds very familiar. I read about it like a month and a half ago. I was busy doing research on Sargeras' blade. I mean, that was just one of the stories that I read about. What else he could be doing? Well, we don't know what Medivh is up to. But I think it's a pretty decent bait that if Azara is seeking the seat of ultimate power on Azeroth, then that may be Karazhan. And that means that she could be the one that holds Khadgar at the moment. The one question that I think no one is asking, that I think is actually the most interesting question of them all, is why the fuck is Dalaran there in the first place? Like, what is Dalaran doing there? It shouldn't be there. Unless it's been called by the whispers or the visions of Azeroth. And also, by the way, Bleach for Fun, how you doing, bro? I have evidence. Like actual, what I believe to be a logical string that proves it was not Azeroth that spoke to Magni during Legion or even during BFA. I made a whole video about that. It will probably come out tonight or tomorrow night. But in the newest story, in one of the spoiler quests, we go to Magni to find out about the visions of Azeroth. And Magni is peeved. He's pissed. He doesn't want anything to do with Azeroth. Because after he helped siphon the power out of Sargeras' sword, and after, you know, the events of Battle for Azeroth, Azeroth stopped speaking to Magni, just completely started ignoring him. Like, it doesn't matter what he says, it doesn't matter what he does. Azeroth does not answer, Azeroth does not speak, Azeroth doesn't do anything for him. And then there's a cutscene where Magni tries to do something because he's trying to help us. We don't know what the cutscene is, but the next thing we get, yeah, she ghosted him like fucking flat, bro. It was literally like, you know, they were in it. They were on the way to start sexting. She had just asked him for a penis pic. He had taken the penis pic and he had sent it to her, and then she didn't even read it. It was done. Magni is pissed. You can imagine, right? He's probably got some blue balls or something. But, yeah, she left him on raid 100%. But what's interesting is that when Magni tries this thing, now I'm just going to throw out what I think may have happened. I don't think Magni got the visions, because if you look through the quest line, Magni knows about the visions, but he doesn't seem to be the one getting the visions, or if he is getting the visions, they just seem to piss him off for some reason, because he says that she will not speak to him, right? So, in other words, he might not be the one that's getting the visions, and he might just know that people are currently getting visions, and that's why he's so angry. Because not only did she friend zone him, but now she pretends like he doesn't exist. You know, it's a perfectly reasonable reason to be a bit pissed. But, when he tries, the cutscene that we haven't seen yet, when he tries to communicate with Azeroth, he doesn't wake up again. Because it says there's a cutscene, and then when we get back, Magni is lying on the floor, completely knocked the fuck out, right? So clearly, you know, he sent Azeroth some angry text about, how dare you, I sent you my dick, and Azeroth punched him in the dick, and he passed out as a result of that, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not exactly saying that's what the story is going to be about. But what I think that proves that it wasn't Azeroth that spoke to Magni, and that Azeroth is actually pissed as fuck at Magni. And here's... Okay, so I said at the time, I don't know if this is Azeroth speaking to Magni. And the reason for it, the logic behind it is, every single one of our actions played into the hands of N'Zoth. Everything we did during Legion, most of the things we did during BFA, allowed N'Zoth to go free. Like everything. And then, surprise, surprise, the second N'Zoth dies, Azeroth stops speaking to Magni. Isn't that maybe just a little bit of a fucking coincidence? The King of Diamonds have been made a pawn. Azeroth is the first old god. Well, there's one of two things that's possible here. Option number one is that Pyromancer is correct in that the old gods are not in fact of the void, and that the old gods are in fact Azeroth's children, or at least natural parts of life on Azeroth. That is one possibility. And so Azeroth didn't care that the old gods would be free. Azeroth simply cared that the Titans should get the hell off of her planet. And so she didn't give a shit about who she hurt. She didn't care about the old gods going free because it's her, it's her children, so to speak. The other part of it that is possible is that it was in fact just N'Zoth that spoke to Magni. Because in both of those instances, the King of Diamonds has indeed been made a pawn. Old gods is just void boogers. My only problem with saying that the old gods are not of the void is that the old gods do reference things like the Masters. The old gods do reference things like the Void Lords. And so there is a lot of information in World of Warcraft that shows that the old gods may not serve the void, but there's also voice lines that the old gods themselves speak that suggests that they do serve the void. Now, the only way that I would say you could get around that is when you say the old gods decided to move to the void or accept the void as their power source after the Titans locked them up. So after the Titans came and locked them up and imprisoned them, the old gods needed a source of power. They needed greater power than what they could get, because at this point the Titans had already weakened Azeroth significantly with all of their engines, and so they had no longer the power from Azeroth herself, and so they went to this outside force to try and get the power from them so that they could eventually break free and eventually kick the Titans in the dick. So that's one way that you could look at it and say, well, it does kind of make sense, right? I mean, we know the old gods deal with deception. You never know what is truth and what is lie with them. Actually, that's not entirely true, VTX. The old gods deal in half-truths, which is not fundamentally the same as deception. They don't lie to you. They just don't tell you everything. I would actually say the old gods don't lie at all. The old gods are incapable of lying. They only ever tell the truth. But remember, what is a half-truth? A half-truth is literally that. It's not the full truth. You're only telling me a little bit of what is actually going on. You're not telling me exactly what is going on, right? And that's what the old gods are. That's how they operate. We've all interpreted half-truth as being, you have to basically take everything they say with a grain of salt, because some of it may be lies and some of it may be true. But that's not technically what a half-truth is. A half-truth is literally half the truth. So I come to you and I tell you that someone punched me in the face and I want you to avenge me. But what I don't tell you is I kicked them in the balls first. That would be me telling you a half-truth. Everything I said is absolutely true. I just left out a couple of convenient points that may actually make you go, well, actually, I think you kind of enjoyed being slapped, or you kind of deserved being slapped for what you had done, right? So I think we should fundamentally change the way we think about the Void. The Void does not lie. They've never lied. They only ever tell the truth. What they don't do is tell the whole truth. Now, you need to decide whether you think that's worse or better. Because it could be both. Quite frankly, because half-truths can still... I mean, if what I'm telling you is 50% of the whole story, but that 50% is true, that doesn't make it good if the other 85% makes it much, much worse, right? Have the old gods ever directly used anything besides void magic, or have they just corrupted people who use the other elements? I don't think the old gods really use a lot of magic. Most of their magic is mind stuff. I mean, they do a lot of mind stuff in terms of magic, but they don't really use direct magic. They'll summon tentacles, they'll make you see things, they'll attack your mind, they'll attack the reality around you, but you know, they don't really do as many like focused beam attacks or stuff like that. They do have access to those, but even those are very voidy, right? Or void-esque. Do you think they tell the half-truths to not influence us, so they aren't directly ordering anything like the Titans? It could be that. Or it could just be that they don't believe the full truth is required, right? So they're only really sharing with you what they think is required for you to know, right? You don't need to know everything because not everything is relevant. And even though you may think everything is relevant, to them everything isn't relevant. More importantly, you have to understand from the perspective of the old gods, they see all truths, right? So they believe that everything they're telling you is true, and therefore everything that happened did happen, but also everything that happened didn't happen. So it's kind of like this, too awkward to even, like, it kind of breaks your brain when you try to holistically put that into a concept that's workable. Everything they told you absolutely did happen and is absolutely true, but also everything they told you absolutely didn't happen and is also not true, because they see every single truth. They see every single timeline. And unlike the Titans, they believe every single one of these timelines. They don't have a cosmic truth. They don't have a one truth like the light that does, like the Titans do. They believe all of the truths to be true at the same time. So it could be that their half-truths are the only constants in all of the truths is the kernel of truth that you get. That's the thing that they share with you, because the other things would be far too complex for us to even make sense of. The new model for Illyria looks bonkersly good. And I also believe that Illyria might be siding with Xalatath in this expansion. Telling half-truths often lead to people making assumptions, and if the truth they share is compelling, they can nudge you in their desired direction by your own choice. True? I mean, that is true. Dunstal, it's actually the opposite. They don't actually speak in absolutes. The Titans and the Light like to speak in absolutes because they have that one fundamental truth, and that's the only truth that matters. The Void don't really speak in absolute truths because there is no absolute truth to the Void. They don't believe in an absolute truth. Elodie, you're basing that on at the hour of her third death, she will usher in our coming, right? I saw a bunch of people DMing me talking about Balila's new video where Balila explains how that is what they're doing, right? And that's what Illyria is going to be there for. The thing that I will come back on, Blizzard, do not spend... Why would Blizzard spend time revamping a character, updating the model, if they're going to kill the character? Then just keep the model as is. Why waste valuable resources on a character that you're going to kill? That would make no sense. Also, note the whisper. The whisper does not say in her third death or at her third death. The whisper says at the hour of her third death. At the hour of her third death. The reason I would push back on the Sourfang thing, and I would like to be clear, I'm not saying that they won't ever do that. They can absolutely do that. But the only thing that I will push back on with the whole Sourfang model change is during BFA, Blizzard spent a lot of money very carelessly on the game. And I think they were doing that in the hopes of drumming up hype and getting people hyped for the expansion. And they hoped that all of this money that was spent would translate into more and more views. Since then, we've seen Blizzard severely cut back on their willy-nilly spending habits. Take, for example, all of the CGI cinematics that we got in Battle for Azeroth and Legion. Where are those CGI cinematics now? They haven't happened in all of Dragonflight. Blizzard didn't do any of those massive CGI cinematics in Dragonflight. Why did they stop? Shadowlands had none of those massive CGI cinematics. Why did they stop? Because it turns out it's a giant waste of money. I think what Blizzard saw was those CGI cinematics don't really bring, millions of players into the game. Even though they're really cool as a marketing tactic, they don't really bring players back. And so there's no point in spending that much money on those. And it's not really going to play out, right? So for me, it's weird if Blizzard decides to update her model just to kill her off. It seems like a giant waste of resources when you don't have to do that. But then even in the lore, I can support the fact that Illyria doesn't die. It says at the hour of her third death. You don't have to die to be in the hour of your third death. Because to be in the hour of your third death is to believe that you are absolutely definitely going to die here. That means you're in the hour of your third death, right? You're at death's door. Things are coming to you. Things are coming down on you. You're surrounded on all sides. You are about to die. You're at the hour of your death. Now, let's say in that moment, Illyria gives herself completely to the void in order to summon the power to save her own life, and that summons through the Void Lords. Well, then she lives, right? She doesn't die. She survives, but she did, in the hour of her death, usher in their coming. So, and this was specifically just talking about, will Illyria die or not? And I don't think she has to die for that whisper to be true. BDX, that's another thing. Although, I have a feeling Blizzard maybe wants to pretend like Shadowlands never happened. Full of work, 7-8. Kimmy, how you doing? How? So you didn't work at all, or did you go to work and then decide, no, not for me, not today? I'm really excited to see how things go on with Anduin and how is he going to serve at the master's table. Yeah, I have largely given up on that fucking whisper. Not gonna lie to you. Like, a big part of me hate that whisper. Because I don't see it. Quite frankly, I genuinely do not see it. Anduin, for everything that he is, I don't see how Anduin would serve the Void. And after everything that Anduin's been through, and all the crying that Anduin has been doing over all the things that he's been through, I kind of don't want Blizzard to put Anduin back into a position where he's doing evil things, because I can't handle another cinematic with Anduin crying. Yeah, but it doesn't matter if Anduin gets tricked. He was mind controlled by Zuval, and he still acted as if he did all the terrible things personally. So Anduin clearly doesn't understand that whole mind control doesn't count. There is the matter of the Void. That the little bit of Void magic that runs from his shoulder into the palm of his hand and then dissipates. So clearly there is Void inside Anduin. But if Blizzard... Whether or not Blizzard will use that remains to be seen, right? We'll have to wait and see, right? Because he wasn't sure if he liked it. Kind of a big deal now. Yeah, he did say that there's a part of him that liked it, but I still don't think it warranted all of the crying. I think Anduin is going to play out the Illyria way, a mix of Void. Two characters with a mix of Void. The only thing that would be cool about that is if Anduin becomes a Shadow Priest. Like, that would be fire as fuck. Like, Anduin, Shadow Priest Anduin? Yes, please. Because then technically you could kind of turn Anduin into a Shadow Paladin. Which would be cool. Yeah, I can Void Paladin vein through. You read my mind, bro. What if he gets light back and that is the master? Well, considering where the whisper comes from Xal'atath. Xal'atath would almost never refer to the light as masters. Well, VTX, we have to keep in mind the whisper. The Boy King serves at the master's table. 3 lies will he offer you. So if Anduin succumbs to the Void and starts using the Void, then it almost stands to reason that he must then serve at the master's table, and then he'll offer us 3 lies. But Frozen Solid, that doesn't matter. Because at the time of the whisper, he was a boy. And also, in the eyes of Xal'atath and the Void, we are all boys and girls. Our lifespans do not even for a moment compare to theirs. They have been alive for millennia. To them, we are children. We are kids playing with kids' shit. Because we have no idea what's going on around us. Sylvanas refers to Anduin as a boy. I think even in BFA, she refers to him as a boy. And he isn't a boy there, right? He's already grown up. He's a prince. He's a king. So the fact that she refers to him as that suggests that even to Sylvanas, and she's nowhere near as old as the Void, but even to her, Anduin in his current age is still very, very boyish. He's a boy, right? Because Sylvanas is considerably older than Anduin would be, right? It could be Dagran. Although it seems more like Blizzard is setting up Dagran to be kind of a soft-spoken, friendly, impulsive, innocent child. Or innocent sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? There's a nice English word for it. When someone... Idealistic. He seems to be set up as more of an idealistic character within WoW. If you look at his appearance, if you look at how he presents himself, how he walks, how he talks, there's an idealistic dreamer kind of goody-goody character there. I don't see him as being as serving at, serving the void. But then again, it says the boy king serves at the master's table. 3 lies will he offer you. The fact that he's a scholar means that people may put some credit into what he says and what he believes, and so he could be the one that lies to us. So it could be that he isn't the boy. It's not Anduin that's the boy king. It's actually the other one. Come on, Akko. I'm dying to hear your thoughts on what Azeroth is besides just the world soul. It's killing me. I mean, I've gone over this with Pyromancer, and my thoughts on this has been pretty public for a while, but Azeroth is the start. She's the beginning. Argus is the end. They are, for lack of a better word, they are the actual first ones, not the first ones that the brokers speak of. The first ones the brokers speak of, in my opinion, are not the first ones. They claim to be the first ones because it serves their goals, but they are not. The first ones, as in the ones that were there before anything was created, was Azeroth and Argus, the Maker and the Unmaker. This is why the Emerald Dream, literally the place where life is made, is connected intimately to Azeroth. And why Argus is called the Unmaker. Because they are the 2 beings that created everything. The Titans then came and split them apart. The Titans, or maybe the first ones, split them and moved them as far away from each other as is humanly possible in an attempt to control creation, as it were. First on it, I did see that, yeah. Look, Ro, how would Illidan be a boy king? He's also pretty old. Ibithulu, no, we know that, no. But we know the void soul, the world soul that Sargeras destroyed. I mean, this has been well known for a very long time, and it's been codified into the lore with the very first chronicles. Sargeras came upon a planet that had a world soul inside of it, but it was infected by the void. It had literally void creatures all over it. Sargeras went back and forth on thinking what to do, and then finally decided to cleave the planet in half, thereby killing the world soul inside of it. And Agrimar was so horrified by what Sargeras had done that he went back to the Pantheon and told the Pantheon about what Sargeras had done, and then the Pantheon summoned Sargeras, and they were like, bad fucking boy, never again. Sargeras went, fuck you, what do you know? Went about trying to kill all life in the universe. The Titans were like, nah, fam, not cool. The Titans then went to Sargeras and said, we challenge you to a duel. Sargeras said, suck my nuts, killed all of them, and then just continued on his crusade to try and kill all life in the universe. So that storyline is well known, unless you're referring to another world soul that Sargeras may or may not have destroyed. I don't... The reason I wouldn't like Dagran being this boy king is it would actually depend on how much effort Blizzard is willing to put into Dagran's character. Because right now, Dagran would be a bit of a wet noodle. He would literally be a bit of a non-starter. I couldn't give two shits about him. As a character, I could literally not care less if he dies. I couldn't care less. If the opening cinematic was Dagran getting kicked in half by a Titan, I'd be like, lol, and I would just move on. Like, who gives a shit? Old Four Eyes got his shit kicked in. Who cares? As a character, he has not done anything yet that makes me care about him. So if Blizzard does want to use him, if Blizzard do want to use him, great, but then develop him, right? Make sure that we care about him as a character. Make sure that he does some really cool stuff with us and alongside us so that we can form that connection with him and that relationship with him. And then sure, let's go for it, right? I'm just, I really, really don't want Blizzard to make the same mistake they did with Zuval and some of the characters we got in Shadowlands, where they introduced these characters, and clearly these characters are meant to be important, but the characters get no time to actually be developed into anything, at least not from the perspective of the players. So yeah, I'm just hoping that Blizzard keeps that in mind. Living Date Girl, how you doing? Mania from Twitch. Twitch is being shit for me. Glad to be here. Why is Twitch being shit for you, Living Date Girl? But we spend getting to know him more, maybe. Like I said, if they do that, yeah, great, let's go. But Shadowlands didn't fill me with a lot of hope that Blizzard always does that. You know, there's so many cool characters that's been introduced in World of Warcraft, and then just, I don't know, it feels like those characters sort of fizzle out. Like Blizzard just sort of forgets that they have those characters. Princess Talanji comes to mind here. You have, what's her name? Polvar's daughter. Come on, you son of a bitch. Talia. Talia for Dragon. You have her as a character that could also be so cool, man. Like, she could be such a cool character. And yet it doesn't seem like anything's ever happening with her. There's a couple of others. They did a couple of things with Kalia Menethil, but I still feel like Kalia Menethil needs a lot more cooking time before... I just genuinely don't like Kalia Menethil. I really do not like Kalia Menethil. As fundamental as she may be to the story, I would not mind if Kalia Menethil took a subset of the Forsaken, turned them into Light Forsaken, and fucked off back to the Alliance. Because I feel like the Horde would lose nothing in Kalia Menethil making her way back to the Alliance. I don't like her. I'd rather have no one in charge of the Forsaken. More interested in her kid? Yeah, if she does have a kid. VTX, again, I'm saying all of this in the spirit of you need to do more with these characters. I'm not saying that Kalia Menethil can't become a truly cool character, but right now, she's a bit of a fucking non-starter to me. She is exactly the same as Dagran. If the opening scene of The War Within was Dalaran crashing down, and she fell on the ground, and then you saw Dalaran falling on top of her, and she went, ah! I would literally be like, finally. All right, let's have the story start. It would do nothing to me. I wouldn't go, oh, damn, I can't believe she's dead now. I would literally not care. I'd be like, okay, let's move on. That's not to say that she doesn't have really cool elements to her that could be explored and she could actually be turned into a super cool character, because she can. But I would need to see that actually be done right? Make her into the cool character that I think she can be and that she obviously can be. Matt, how you doing, bro? If they really wanted to flesh out Dagran right now, they would have to put him. They would have to put him to help us out in the delves. They might be the only reason they may be using Bran instead of Dagran is because Dagran is still very new, and so they want players to, at least for the first season of these delves, to have someone that they know. You know, Lily, I'm not as turned off by it. Because if indeed we are going to get an expansion where the light shows up, then Kalia Menethil and her light Nazis are going to have to join up with Terralion and his light fanatics. And that makes sense to me, that Kalia Menethil will join with Terralion on the side of the Army of the Light. And that may actually be the thing, just FYI. If we do live in a world where, Illyria does die, that may be the moment that triggers Terralion into becoming the fanatic that we all thought that he could probably be. Kalia wouldn't fight Uriel. Or Ural. She would definitely not fight Ural. If anything, she would help Ural. Remember, it is the light that raised her. So Kalia is absolutely 100% beholden to the light. Yeah, Dan, that's the point. So my theory on how this whole light expansion starts, Ural invades Azeroth. Terralion joins Ural in the invasion of Azeroth, not because Terralion wants to destroy Azeroth or even wants to kill people, but because Terralion believes that the only way for Azeroth to survive is by the whole of Azeroth turning to the light. Right? Terralion joins Ural, and you also have Kalia with a subset or a section of the Forsaken and maybe even of the Horde joining up with the light as well, because they believe that is the right way to go. And now you have a giant expansion with some incredible followers following the light and becoming a nuisance. And if I am correct, that could be the next saga for World of Warcraft, if it isn't in the next expansions. For Illidan to come back? I wonder what Illidan's learned now that he's spent so much time with the Titans. He must have learned some things. And that's going to be interesting. I won't say Illidan is my favorite character, and because he's not. My favorite characters is very specifically Sargeras, Gul'dan, Sylvanas, in that order. But sometimes not in that order. It depends on what we're doing. Sometimes one of them takes the top spot and the other two gets relegated to the bottom two spots. But those three characters are my favorite characters in the game. I could play the game literally day in, day out if those three characters are present in the game. I don't know if he will necessarily side with Sargeras. Because remember, Sargeras' goal is still completely misguided. Sargeras wanted to end all life in the galaxy. That is a misguided goal. It's not a great goal to have. Sargeras may be right about a number of things, but it may be that Sargeras' solution to those things is a little wrong. And so it kind of stands to reason that while Illidan may see the the truths in Sargeras' arguments, Illidan may look at Sargeras and go, but brah, the way you handled this was really piss poor. Let's not do that again. And unsurprisingly, as I'm a Horde player, and Saurfang, rip. Saurfang was pretty cool. Although I preferred Old Thrall. Like, Old Thrall was so cool, man. It's actually kind of sad that Old Thrall had been done so dirty. Like, I really hope we get... Old Thrall back. Like, the old kick-ass Thrall. Grom is also super cool. That's why I think he would hate the Titans just as much. He'd not trade one subjugating master for another. I can see that 100%. I can 100% agree with that. Yeah. I like Thrall, but Green Jesus was such a perfect nickname. Yeah, well, you know, whatever nickname you want to give him, Thrall is still a cool character, and he is actually badass. Like, he is actually badass. The problem is just he's sort of been relegated in the story to just being a sort of an observer. He's just kind of like that friendly uncle that no one really cares about, but he's there, so you make room for him. When in reality, he is super powerful. He has one of the best backstories in World of Warcraft, and he's just not utilized. It genuinely feels like they just don't want to utilize him. Whatever happened to Nathanos, his character was growing on me. So Nathanos, after being killed by Tyrande, his soul made it into the Maw, where somehow Zuval got his hands on it. That's why Zuval taunts Sylvanas. That's why Tyrande taunts Sylvanas in the cinematic, saying they didn't even tell you what happened to him. Right? And that's the moment, that's one of the moments that Sylvanas realizes that something might be a little bit fucking off here. Everything doesn't feel quite 10-4. And now Sylvanas is out in the Maw looking for Nathanos. She's trying to figure out where he is kept. He's just the guy with the axe now. Also, he apparently lost his shaman powers. Not anymore. He got those back. In Shadowlands, when you go to rescue him, he's sort of, you know, in a sexual position, like absolute BDSM masterpiece position, inside Torghast, and then he summons the lightning to break the chains. So he does have his powers back. Hope he gets disenchanted. Awful character. Fuck you, bro. Nathanos is a cool character. He's a bit of a simp, but he's still a cool character. Music Damar, how you doing, bro? You can't convince me Nathanos isn't a Denuser self-insert. I'm not going to try and convince you of that. Because Nathanos as a character has a very cool story. But it is true that Nathanos became very unlikable in Legion and in BFA. Like, Nathanos became a deeply unlikable character. Because he really did just become a mouthpiece for Sylvanas, which is actually not what Nathanos used to be. He wasn't afraid of Sylvanas, and in fact, Sylvanas respected Nathanos because he was always willing to tell her the truth, and he was always willing to give her advice, and that was just never shown in the latest or the last bits of Nathanos' life. He just genuinely became a simp, you know? Like, if Sylvanas had an OnlyFans, he would be the top donator on that OnlyFans. Loved him for being a constant challenge to her, not his looks. Oh, yeah. If you read the story, like the actual history of Sylvanas and of Nathanos, their love story is phenomenal. It is actually a really, really cool love story. Aren't we all Sylvanas simps, though? I mean, yeah, but we're allowed to be. We're just players of the game. Nathanos can shoot bows and shit. Like, he's not a weak-ass character. He should be fucking standing up for himself because that is actually his personality. So, yeah. It's kind of one of those things where I don't know what went wrong there. I don't know if Blizzard just really wanted Sylvanas to give off, mommy energy or some bullshit. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. Nathanos became cringe, which is sad. Pour one out from Azeroth. It was criminal what they did to him. Unless it's not over. Clea from Bastion equals more appealing female character in WoW. 5 me. Clea is the one that helps fuckboy, right? I don't know what his name, Pelagos or some shit like that. I mean, sure. When you say more interesting character, in what way? Yes, mommy. Boy toy, sadly. If it's not over for N'Zoth, then no worries. Well, if we are to assume that N'Zoth and the other old gods are in fact fragments of the Void Lords, then the Void Lords have not been destroyed, and N'Zoth and the other old gods simply returned to the Masters. Which means they're still around. They're still, kicking around and doing their thing. Okay, that is entirely possible, if not even plausible, but I don't know. Let's see what the news story is all about. I don't have enough information or evidence to suggest that is true. Could be, right? Could be. Because there's still really cool characters in World of Warcraft that Blizzard can pull in. I like the new characters that's come in. I like the new generation of characters that's come in. I feel like almost all of the new characters was brought in a good way to make the story feel good, right? It feels like there's enough information there that it can actually play out well, but we'll have to wait and see, right? If let's put it this way. If all of the male characters die in the War Within, and the only male characters that survive are effeminate men, or like nerdy dudes, then yeah, sure, maybe you can make the argument that Blizzard is just emasculating men in World of Warcraft, but that has not happened yet, right? You still have Malfurion kicking around, you still have Thrall kicking around, even Anduin looks boss as fuck with his new model, right? So it's I don't think there's enough information yet for us to make that assertion, but anything's possible. I mean, it's life, right? Let's read the question. Iridicron is a pretty powerful character. Iridicron is also badass, right? Yeah, Pelagos was such a bad character, man. Like, fuck me. Such a bad character. Here you have... I mean, nothing about that storyline made any sense. It just felt like it was so rushed. I don't want to hark on it, because, I mean, obviously, super old expansion. It seems like Blizzard wants to forget the expansion as well. But, yeah, it really just felt like, what do you mean? Who is this and why do I care? Oh, it's going to be the new Arbiter, is it? I thought the Arbiter was like an important role, but now a mere mortal can just become the Arbiter? That's cool. We're probably going to find out. New World, we're probably going to find out. Well, why was he chosen as the Arbiter again? Because he lost and was useless in everything else that he did. That is legitimately why Pelagos was chosen as the Arbiter. Every single thing Pelagos tried to do, he fucked up and failed at. He couldn't even complete his own trials, but he was good enough to be the Arbiter. Which I guess is just, You don't need the skills to do the job. Just dress for the job you want, not the job you have, right? And there you go. Jamie was warning us about the Draktyr, obviously. I didn't care about the Earthen as a race in game, but holy shit, they look cool as fuck. Dude, the detail of the Earthen is actually the thing that blows me away. They eat rocks and gems, and they actually have a racial that makes it impossible for them to eat normal food. And they can't eat normal food. The animals that they hunt are made of stone, which is so cool. It's like, what? Dude, that's nuts. I like that. Wait, what? Paligos had no idea. Pretty much, he sucked at everything he did, but through his sucking... Dude, Paligos is the perfect example of failing upward. Just fail and get the promotions. Like that. Paligos is... I would not be surprised if whoever the fuck wrote Paligos' story has had a similar trajectory in their careers. You know, they keep failing and then they get promoted. And then they fail and they get promoted. And I thought, man, my life would make for a great story. I mean, here you have a character that you're clearly grooming to become one of the more powerful beings in the Shadowlands, the Arbiter. And this character is going to be the one character that is basically useless at everything. Have done nothing of value. Basically just kind of exist. Poster child for a participation trophy. No, Jungle. So Paligos. Paligos was female in life, but when Paligos died, Paligos actually chose a male form, and so became male in the Shadowlands. Which, from a lore perspective, I mean, how the fuck not? You have literally Bastion running around re-educating people. Anything is possible in the Shadowlands. So, I mean, you have a giant robot that went down for no reason whatsoever other than just, I guess, Argus' soul hitting the robot. So I don't mind stuff like that. It makes perfect sense within the lore. It's fine, right? But yeah, that is the official story of Paligos, which is actually sort of part of the reason why I think Blizzard really fucked up that story. Because obviously Blizzard created, I believe, World of Warcraft's first trans character, and then ended up making it one of the most unlikable characters in the game. And it's just like what the fuck are you doing? Why do you take a character that, you know, clearly matters to them? They wanted to have that representation. They wanted to make the game more inclusive in their minds. But then why do you make the character just shit? Wouldn't this be the perfect opportunity to make a really cool character that people really like? You know, I don't understand that at all. Wyfan, how you doing? Fox goes sideways. That's true. That's true, Kimmy. They were so scared to piss people off that they didn't do shit with him. I don't know. I don't even know if that was the case, because, you know, Paligos had an intriguing story at the start, but it just didn't work out that way. It is what it is. What can you do? I don't want to talk about Shadowlands. It gives me fucking PTSD, man. Like, that expansion. Whoa, that game. That, I think, is the closest I've ever came to being broken in World of Warcraft. That expansion almost killed me. It was almost the end for me in Shadowlands. I'm doing well, Wyfan. You joined right at the tail end of Barrens Chat, but you can always go back and watch the whole thing. I actually already went about 40 minutes longer than what I usually want to go, but we're down some fucking rabbit holes here, so I'm just riding the wave to see where we end up. VTX, did you not play when Shadowlands was current? You're lucky, bro. You are lucky. Whiskey, how you doing, bro? What do I remember about the Pillars of Creation? Off the top of my head? Not much, actually. Oh man, I made so many videos about those in Shadow Legion. I know they're artifacts of great power, and they were gifted by the Titans, I believe, themselves, or at least in part gifted by the Titans themselves, but I'm not entirely sure. What do you want to know about the Pillars of Creation? Because I know Ajara stole one. No, was it Ajara that stole it? Who stole? It was Ajara, yeah. Ajara stole one of them. And then used it to create that giant sort of wall of water. I know they're incredibly powerful. Just have to do the mole quest to get rid of the Death Knight crowd in the middle of Orgrimmar. Tears of Elune, Hammer of Norganon, etc. Yeah, you're talking about basically all of the... Basically, each of the Titans have their own artifact that is considered to be the Pillars of Creation. But as to what exactly the Pillars of Creation's purpose is, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember. I don't actually know what their purpose was, Whiskey. I'd have to go read up about them again. Because, you know, each of them had a purpose, but I'm not sure what the like the intended purpose was. So yeah, I genuinely can't say. I think most of them are still in Dalaran. Like, after we removed them from the Tomb of Sargeras, obviously after we cleared out the tomb, I think most of them are there. I'm just not sure about... I think it's Norganon's disc that Ajara stole. Not sure what happened to that one. I think we got it back. Did we get it back? Am I misremembering now? Or was it destroyed? I don't think it was destroyed. I think we got that one back as well. I mean, we fought into her inner sanctum and we defeated her. And then she got taken by N'Zoth. So we should have access to that one as well. And it's possible that they moved that into Dalaran, and that may explain why the Nerubians attacked Dalaran. I wonder if there's... I'm gonna go read up about that. Thank you. You've given me something to read about. Yeah. There might be something interesting there. Yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Thank you. Because that is definitely an interesting thing to ponder. Because if Dalaran isn't completely destroyed, then this means that Xal'atath now has control of all of the Pillars of Creation. Now, we saw what Ajara did with the Tidestone. You guys are right. It is the Tidestone, by the way. What could you do if you had all of them? And then you couple that with the Dark Heart. How much power do you now have basically at your disposal? I don't know if you have all the power, but you certainly have a fuck ton of it. And if you have Khadgar, Khadgar opens the way into Karazhan with the Dark Heart and the Pillars of Creation and the power of Karazhan. Would that create a big enough portal that is strong enough to sustain entry of Void Lords into our reality? Because I imagine it would. If anything can, then that is it. And then we get to exactly Elodie, the Lord of Ravens turns the key. And the question is just, does the Lord of Ravens turn the key on purpose, knowingly, or under duress, or perhaps under mind control? JT, I don't believe that the Void Lords are just black holes. I don't believe that we've ever seen a Void Lord in the history of World of Warcraft, and I also no longer believe that Dimensius was Void Lord. I think Dimensius, because here's the thing, we are told that Dimensius was a Void Lord, and the only way we're told this is from bits and bobs of lore shared with us by the Ethereals. I will remind people that the Ethereals refuse mostly to speak about what happened to Koresh and what happened on Koresh. They will not talk about it. When you talk to ordinary Ethereals and you ask them about Koresh, they usually just say something like, I will not talk about this. So whatever we do know is incredibly limited about that time. What we know for a fact, though, is that Dimensius showed up on Koresh unassisted. Dimensius he wasn't summoned in. He didn't need a shit ton of power in order to arrive in Koresh. He literally just showed up there. If the Void Lords could do that, why don't they do that to Azeroth? They've been trying to get to Azeroth for a very long time. If Void Lords like Dimensius can literally just show up, why then not do it? So I think Dimensius is a general of the Void Lords. I don't believe that he is a Void Lord. I think Dimensius is very similar to the Devourers. In other words, a being that the Void Lords send when they wish to destroy something. But I don't think the Void Lords necessarily act in the same way, or at least don't have to act in the same way. Lotso started singing before Dimensius showed up and blow them up. Yeah, but again, that's from the few people that are willing to speak to us, and it's mostly unconfirmed garbage, because again, the Ethereals will not actually tell us what happened there. They reluctantly will sometimes give you bits and bobs of information. Description of the Eye of Amanthal. The Eye can channel immense amounts of arcane magic and has power over space-time. Kind of makes sense, right? Because Amanthal would have, that's his power. And that's what he would have gifted. I don't think you need power over space, though, for a Void Lord to come in. It all depends on the makeup and the structure of the universe of World of Warcraft. Because if the universe of World of Warcraft truly operates the way that I think it does, then all of these are different dimensions rather than actual places. So if you look at where Shadowlands is, Shadowlands seems to be directly on top of Azeroth. But it might be that Shadowlands isn't directly on top of Azeroth. It's just that the realm of the Great Beyond is layered on top of and below every other dimension. So the Void Lords have a dimension, Death has a dimension, Life has a dimension, and it's all layered on top of each other. So the giant in between is as big as the Great Beyond. It's just in a different dimension to the Great Beyond, which then puts even more power on Azeroth, because why would the literal heart of the Shadowlands be directly on top of Azeroth? Well, because Azeroth is truly the center of everything. And then you look at Nyalotha. Nyalotha, clearly a city that was built to have as close of a connection to the Void dimension as is possible in reality. And that also exists where Azeroth is. So clearly Azeroth is the center point of everything, and everyone sort of fights for Azeroth. AA very correctly and very astutely observed. Yeah. I mean, if the most powerful void being you've ever encountered in your entire life shows up, and this void being is so powerful that nothing you do can stop this void being, then, well, maybe you go, this must be a void lord? Because what else could it be? Dementius is clearly more powerful than the old gods. And the old gods are considered by most, if not many, to be the children of the Void Lords themselves. So people believe them to be second in command. But if I'm correct, then the old gods aren't second in command. They're literally just scouts. That's why they're nowhere near as powerful as the Titans, because they were never meant to be powerful. They were meant to be scouts. They were meant to supply information to the Void and to the Void Lords. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been fun. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode of Barrens Chat. We kind of went way over time, already 50 minutes to be exact. I kind of want these to just be about 2 hours long, but we went through a couple of rabbit holes here, which was obviously super fun. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this show. If you did, please remember to hit that like button because it does help out quite a lot. To all of the people that supported tonight, everyone that gifted subs and everyone that donated, I really appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. And then to everyone that just showed up and watched, without you, this show would literally be the most boring show on earth. So I really appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other. Have a phenomenal weekend. And I will see all of you in videos and stuff throughout the week, but I will definitely see all of you back here next Friday. Peace.